On the east coast of Africa, bordering the Red Sea and forming part of the Horn of Africa, lies the oldest state on the African continent, the Empire of Ethiopia. Her people's ethnic identity dates back to 1000 BC, when Cushitic and Semitic invaders from southern Arabia combined with the indigenous Negroid inhabitants. From this ethnic group sprang the intriguing kingdoms of Aksum, Lalibela, and Gondar. The Empire of Ethiopia, with its present-day capital at Addis Ababa, is ruled by an aging man who came to power in 1930. Since his coronation, Emperor Haile Selassie has worked toward building his country's influence in the outside world. In attempting to establish a democratic aura in his empire, he created a constitution which gave his people legal rights, including the right to elect a parliament. However, since the parliament must remain subservient to his wishes, it has, at this time, little more than rubber stamp authority. Ethiopia's terrain is mostly mountainous with very rocky soil. Even where the terrain is not so barren, the soil is still rocky. 90% of Ethiopia's 24 million people work against it continually as subsistence farmers or livestock herdsmen using methods and tools which are centuries old. And the country's advancement, therefore, has been slow and painful, hindered as well by 95% illiteracy. Although it is true that the country is underdeveloped, she is not poor in resources. From the soil, as poor as it is, enough food is grown to allow the population to subsist, plus a small surplus for export. In addition, 50% of all the country's exports is coffee. A steadfast traditional influence on the lives of Ethiopians is the powerful Ethiopian Orthodox Church, a curious mixture of ancient Jewish, Muslim, and pagan influences. Amharic, the official language, is also a result of ancient influence. A Semitic tongue, it has grammatical similarities to Arabic. But this is only one language out of a total of 70 used in the country. What you have just heard has been an extremely brief and oversimplified political, economic, and social description of Ethiopia. It will provide a modern reference point for our trip into the cultural and historical heritage of the ancient empire. Our trip will cover about 3,000 years. 35 air miles and 7,500 feet above the Red Sea port of Massawa lies the city of Asmara. Largely because of Asmara's unique geographical location, it is the home of a U.S. Army communications base. Today is a national holiday. It is the month of Mescal, the Ethiopian New Year. All of Asmara's shops have closed for this colorful event, so let's join the townspeople down below. Because any holiday in Ethiopia is connected in some way with religion, the local priests are sure to be on hand. Keeping away from the sun and flies as best they can, they're patiently awaiting the start of this New Year's celebration. Against an incongruous backdrop of American technology, the traditional processions have started. These will be the order of the day and will last for well over 3 hours. Ethiopians dressed here in their multicolored costumes are extremely proud of their heritage, believing their land was given to them by God as their sacred possession. Mescal celebrates the finding of the true cross. The meaning of much of the celebration is lost in myth, including the necessity for burning the cross. The celebration takes many musical forms. But just as at any traditional observance, there are those who appear less than ecstatic about the whole thing and give the air of having seen it all before. Flying 85 miles from Asmara, we are headed thousands of years into the past, straight to the genesis of Ethiopian civilization. The center of ancient Ethiopia is in the city of Aksum, from which the civilization takes its name. Here, 3,000 years ago, various peoples in the region created a novel and distinct kingdom. Novel because located as it was on a great caravan trade route, the Aksumites had access to all ideas and technologies of contemporary civilizations, and distinct because it was comparable to other great kingdoms in both area and power, which lasted more than 500 years. Aksum today is a huge and sprawling village of mud and stone huts dotted with rural-type huts called tukuls. The center of the village is made up of more advanced but still crude structures. Aksum is surrounded by her past glory. The Aksumite Queen of Sheba, famous for her relationship with Solomon of Israel, lived in a royal palace here among her subjects. But Aksum's glory is left mostly to the imagination, and the dirt hovels and the abundance of flies at midday make even that difficult. Not far away is Sheba's pool, built 2,000 years ago to supply water for her kingdom and as a bath for she and her women. In the heat of the day, it must have been a very popular place. Aksum's most famous heritage is the towering obelisks, or steles, many lying where they fell thousands of years ago. The tallest standing stele is 67 feet high, carved of solid granite. Much mystery surrounds the stele. They seem, however, to have been used both in pagan as well as Christian times. Some think they were figurative stairways for the dead, others that they were tomb markers, and still others think they may have been altars. Underground tombs of a later people in Aksum, actually marked by crude steles, bear religious markings left by the chisels of their craftsmen. And their walls, put together without cement and fitting perfectly together, show a high degree of workmanship and planning in their construction. In the 4th century, Christianity became the kingdom's official religion when Aksum's king Ezanus was converted by Greek missionaries in the area. At this spot, he built Ethiopia's first church, the Church of the Ark of the Covenant, so named because it is supposed to contain the original Ark of the Covenant taken by the son of the Queen of Sheba upon his return from Jerusalem. Stone tablets taken from the ruins of Ezanus' palace record in Greek characters the military victories of the newly converted king. The original church was destroyed by the pagan Queen Judith, the second structure by the people of southern Ethiopia, and the third, built in the 17th century, is still standing. Inside the church, which only men are permitted to enter, are fascinating murals which teach the people stories about their religious and civil history. Outside of the treasury of the church, the local priest has put some of the church's relics on display. A nagarit drum, used in religious festivals, along with an ornate gold cross, speak of colorful pageantry centuries old and still used today. Since the 17th century, it has been the custom for each Ethiopian monarch to give his jewel-studded crown to the church. Emperor Haile Selassie's crown, worn when he was crowned prince, appears on the far right. This illustration for a 15th century Bible, like all Ethiopian art, is very basic in color. The church's bell tower with a voice long dead is an example of an architectural form used by the kings of Gondar of a later period. Even in the 20th century, new structures are built in imitation of the old. The steles here have a modern counterpart. The new St. Mary's of Zion was built by the emperor with the help of Greek architects. The altar in the church is a gift of the Greek Orthodox Church. As a modern backdrop for a time-worn stele, it too could be a structure of interest centuries from now. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. It's only the 7th century and the Aksumite Empire has faded from the scene. Muslims are now invading the land, cutting the country off from its Greek ties. An evolutionary process takes place which pushes the kingdom southward 125 miles, where power again becomes centralized, this time in an area known today as Lalibela. The terrain around Lalibela is extremely rugged, barring all modes of transportation except the airplane. And even then it cannot be approached during the summer months when the torrents of rain flood all possible landing areas. But the rains have been gone for a month. We're in luck. This thatched roof structure you see here is the airport's main terminal. Its crudeness is indicative of the rest of the area, for Lalibela is 6,500 feet up and secluded from just about everything. Living their life of seclusion, Lalibelans work with the land in the same manner their fathers did 800 years ago. Sometime in the 12th century, the Zagwe king Lalibela established his kingdom as the center of the empire. At the age of 24, he envisioned a plan for his city of rock that would establish his place in the church as a saint. For the next 30 years, he fashioned from its rugged granite terrain 11 majestic monolithic churches. Ingeniously carved from solid granite, the method of their construction and the implied logistics have remained an overwhelming mystery. And despite the passage of time, weather, and war, these towering giants are in excellent condition. Many have been placed in intricate positions within their rocky surroundings. The most famous is the Church of St. George, built in the form of a typical Ethiopian cross and carved straight down into a pit of granite. The churches are connected by unusual passageways which require careful footing and a good memory. In his churches, Lalibela attempted to create a new Jerusalem. In some of the sanctuaries, he added duplicate tombs of the ancient Hebrew fathers, hoping this would keep his people from going on pilgrimages to the Holy Land, for many who had gone had never returned, having been killed or taken as slaves by neighboring Muslims. Outside, in the surrounding mountain walls, tombs were prepared for the burial of priests. Such tombs are a common sight around the churches, as are the baptismal pools. However, you'd better be careful which pool you're dealing with. Priests would lower women into this hole as a very common practice. The desired effect? Pregnancy. Today, the priests merely wander around with seemingly not much to do. Outside in the heat, the flies become unbearable for the unaccustomed. But no one really seems to care. It's just another part of life in an isolated Ethiopian village. It is now the 17th century. The Muslim